And now we've got our friend Kevin Sjuts from 1011 News in Lincoln joining us. Kevin, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Good morning to you, boys.
So, Kev, this is interesting. I'm listening. I'm comparing and contrasting, and I always like to talk to you because you understand the volleyball landscape really, really well. And there's more than a couple ways to skin a cat. You listen to guys like Coach Rhule and then head coaches like DBK, both very confident, but have a very different cadence when they talk. So far, when you're listening to DBK, because I want to start with her and kind of her cadence and her delivery about what she wants, right? I want to play like we practice, and practice is really competitive. And hey,
Want to be aggressive in everything we do.
Chobo is a little unorthodox. It's a little choppy. I want to see that. Like she tells us a lot of what we need to know, but the cadence is different. When you're listening to DBK early on, what are some of your initial takeaways in terms of her presence with the podium when she's talking about the potential for this volleyball team?
She's confident. She's pretty blunt. And there's just not a whole lot of filter there. And I've always been impressed with Dani's ability to just kind of tell it how it is without crossing the line of arrogance. And maybe that just goes to the talent that she has on the team. But if you kind of look at the makeup, think about who she surrounds herself with daily, like in the gym. She's got a veteran coaching staff. Jalen's a super confident assistant coach. Kelly gets better as a coach every single year. She's got some youthfulness on the staff with.
She's still got some game left too.
Yeah, I mean, she's she's been a head coach how long? 10 years? Something like 10, 12 years, something like that. Players she's around every single day, you can't perform at that elite level if you're not confident in yourself. And Harper is confident in what she can do. Andy Jackson is confident in what she can do. And we can keep going down 1 through 17. All those girls believe they can play. And so I just think that's kind of like embedded in the DNA of the program. Some of it handed over from John Cook, but I think Dani, just given her experience and just the way she's hooked up, I really am impressed with the fact that she's willing to say what she sees, tell it how it is, and make no bones about it. And she's got the team to back it up.
Kevin, does she remind you of anybody? The way she kind of, because like it seems, and maybe my encyclopedia is not just going back far enough here, but like I'm trying to remember anybody that sort of talks like her, and I'm having a hard time coming up with a comparison.
And you're still motivated, right? She's not over the top.
Which I kind of like, because I'm not a big rah-rah guy, but you can say things that'll get me
going.
And
she injects, it's interesting.
It's not strained, but it's a different kind of delivery. Does she remind you of anybody, Kevin?
No, and I don't know that I'm the most qualified person to speak on that. I know Dani personally, too, so – I know Dani before she was the head coach at Louisville. I knew Dani before she was an assistant coach at Tennessee. So it's really difficult for me to like differentiate. She's just, and that's one of the cool things for me is like she's true to herself, and it's not like all the different things she's experienced. As an assistant coach under John, and then being the head coach at Louisville, and learning to run a program, and throwing herself into that community and building Louisville volleyball to what it is right now, and now as Nebraska's head coach, and being back home and being by mom and dad and being around her brother regularly and being a part of the Lincoln community, like, and he's still Dani. Like, it's a really cool thing. And she's always been confident in herself. And I do think just her positivity. And I remember the first practice, Nebraska's first practice of the preseason. One of my biggest takeaways from the whatever it was, 2 hours that we got to get video and just watch them drill and everything, it wasn't about like the setter situation or Virginia being on the court with these players and learning American volleyball. It was the fact that Dani smiles all the time during practice. She just has a grin, and whether she's working with the setters or whether she's chopping it up with her assistant coaches, like there's just some positivity and happiness that radiates from her. And I think it breathes a lot of life into her players. And I think that that's one of the underlying reasons why the players have said that, like, practice is fun. They love training. And I also think they like the fact that Dani just likes to see him play volleyball. And they scrimmage all the time.
Yeah.
And with this group, 1 through 17, there's no, like, team. If they were to mix in, a group of 6 to play in a scrimmage setting, there's no team that's, going to hold everybody else back. Everybody's good.
Let me ask you, like, conversely, I'm kind of coming off the heels of listening to Coach Rhule on Saturday and getting the vibe. And he's almost just the opposite kind of as an orator, right? But whether it's the vocab or the smoothness in the delivery, yet I'm getting a very similar message that he comes across as a coach that really likes this football team this year. Is that kind of been the sense that you've been getting as you've listened to him throughout this offseason and as they closed out camp last week?
Yeah, I've even thought about this on the opposite side, because he has said he really likes this team. This is some of the most fun he's had coaching in a long, long time, and he shared that openly, publicly. When has there been a moment throughout the preseason, whether it was back in the spring or during fall camp, where he has maybe put in one of those sneaky lines where he's challenging a player or a position group? I cannot think of anything.
Yeah.
The only possible hint of that was, we got to tackle a little bit better.
Yep.
And it was like 3 seconds of a 25-minute interview. So the fact that, like, his criticism of the team, like, there doesn't really seem to be much of one. And I can reference back to multiple occasions, year 1, year 2, where he would use the microphone and the cameras on to send a message to a player, a position group, or perhaps one of his coaches to try to pick it up a little bit. But he always does it so tactfully and in such a strategic way.
Yeah. There's
one offensive lineman in particular that I think he was just wanting to get a little bit more out of during spring football. And I walked away from that interview session going, wow, like, you don't hear a coach in the spring often challenge a player like that.
Yeah.
But it paid off in the fall. So, I've just tried to pay attention to when that moment is where he calls out one of the kickers and says, listen, we got to be better in a big time moment. Or, like, our offensive line had too many missed assignments or breakdowns, or we were procedurally wrong today. Like, the whole camp, the whole spring, it's been kind of devoid of any of those moments.
Kevin, you and I, like, and Ravi, we get these emails, right? The updates on media availability, and there's been a lot of fluctuation the last handful of days. And I don't know if I'm reading into this or not with practice times, but this staff appears to be very in tune with what this team needs and when they need to be doing it, right? I know some people get frustrated with, oh, this is different, or this schedule changed, or now it's 2:00 or whatever. But to me, it looks like he's trying to get a gauge and read the pulse of what his team needs and when they need to be doing what they're doing. And he's willing to be flexible within those confines, right? Like, how are you kind of viewing every day when you click on an email and it's something maybe a little different than what you thought it was going to be the day before?
Well, it just proves to us that you can't plan any day 24 hours in advance because it's completely flipped.
Isn't it? It's, I've never really seen it like this, but I actually kind of like it.
I've had to rearrange several interviews here over the past couple of weeks just because, Nebraska football, that's got to be the beat. It's a big thing, Even a couple of text messages out last night to some high school coaches like, hey, I'm so sorry. We really want to check out your team, but we just had a change here with Rhule and the guys, so we're going to have to reschedule and make some moves like that. I don't think it's going to continue, though, with some of the, light on your feet and, moving structure of practice and meetings and interviews and so on and so forth, because the boys got to get in school here, right? And when class starts, there has to be some sort of routine. So if there is a time to mix and match the way that you orchestrate every day in the things you want to get accomplished, you can do it now. But we're falling into the backside of August, and that's when the semester is really going to kick in, and academics are going to play a big role with these guys. you got to make sure that there's some sort of routine and structure. And even the Thursday season opening game, that's a little goofy.
It is.
So the routine of the football season, and that's one of the beauties of football season, in my opinion, is week to week there is a cadence to it, and there's some comfortability with it's kind of rinse and repeat, and you just get to maximize, because you don't have to worry about the mental toil of what does this day look like. It was so different than yesterday. There's just some consistency once the season begins. But for Nebraska, with the Thursday game, the consistency actually doesn't hit until September, second week of September, something like that, because I don't know, that first game, camp ending, it's everything's just so fluid right now. But I look forward to mid-September, when it's going to be a little bit more, we know exactly what to expect.
As a Lincolnite, Kev, probably more pride if we're going to just stick with the gridiron. The fact that Gunnar Gatula continues to thrive. I think if they're being honest, Coach Gatula was going to tell you, hey, listen, you know what? I thought all along my son was a pretty good player. Not sure the state recognized that. Or you go over to the Gators and North Star and you see a guy like Tyrell Chapman, be acknowledged and recognized as part of this Super Six. Not a bad little stretch for local gridiron recognition and what's going on with those two guys.
Oh, not at all. And yeah, Coach Gatula would not say anything about it.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good. Words are hard to come by with the old ball coach. You're right about that. Let alone praise.
Oh my goodness, no kidding, right? We can barely get him to, give us more than 10 seconds to say, yeah, we've got a good team on our hands, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's delivered with such little emotion too. It's so hard to get a read with Lincoln Southeast. I know they have such a huge fan base and they're a contender in the city every single year, but we have to see it for our own eyes.
Yeah.
We can't take it from the other people talking to us because they give us nothing. But I love Coach Gatula. He's awesome. And the funny thing is, you can end the recorder, you can stop the video, and I typically have the greatest conversations. We just can't talk about football.
I would just love to hear him say, "Yeah, you know what? I thought my son's gonna be pretty good. I'm glad." Just give Gunnar a look, because he's kind of flown under the radar to be flourishing as well as he is.
Yeah, and when Gunnar was a senior, that Southeast team, they had some dudes on the offensive line. And the other tackle they had, his name's escaping me right now. I want to say the last name is Johnson. I think he's at Iowa Western now. So it's like they had two twin towers holding down the line, and it was such a luxury for them. And that's where, you would ask, Coach Gatula about Gunnar, and he's like, well, it's not just him. So it's another reason for him to just kind of deflect a little bit. But to your point about bringing Tyrell Chapman, I'm so excited to watch him play this year. And Lincoln North Star, I think, is primed to have a pretty good year in the city. The thing with Chapman, though, yeah, he plays quarterback, but I use air quotes with that because he's the type of guy that they could line him up in the backfield. They could put him at tight end. They could put him at wide receiver. I think they're going to be a really hard team to scout just because they can be pretty multiple offensively. And Chapman's going to get the ball, but how does he get the ball? That's going to be a big mystery, and I could see it changing from week to week. Really, where he is at his best is on the defensive side of the football, and he's going to Iowa State, of course, where he's going to play corner for the Cyclones. I just think he's going to be the best athlete in the city. He is so fast. And if you see him, stand next to him, you don't recognize, this dude's got some wheels.
Yeah.
He can. He maybe didn't get the shine he deserved in the track season just because of Charlie Thorne. Thorne broke all the records and won the 400, but Chapman was on his heels all season long. And because Charlie had such an amazing year, Chapman maybe didn't get the love that he deserved in the track and field season.
Yeah, they got a chance to make some hay, right? They start, I think, with Southwest, then they go to Papio maybe. But I got my eye on that 9-12 date when they get the Storm at Elkhorn South, which I think in week 3 will tell us quite a bit about where those guys are. That one's interesting because I think Elk South's got some pretty good skill, and I like guys like Setko.
Yeah, I do too. The one thing I'll say about Lincoln football this year, guys, I'm just really – it's disappointing that a lot of the Lincoln teams don't play each other.
Yeah.
And, of course, you get Southeast, Southwest. and you're going to get Southwest East. But there are multiple teams in Lincoln that have only one city opponent this year, and that breaks my heart.
Hey, North Star is one of them. They only play Lincoln Southwest.
It's kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you. You know, like, these are the guys that they grew up playing midget football against, and these are the dudes that they, you know, go to camp with, and you know, these are the fan bases that like to talk a little smack. And you know, like, when you go to Seacrest Field and it's Southeast Southwest, you know, there's a pretty vibrant atmosphere. All due respect to, I'm going to pick a random thing, Papillion La Vista. When Papillion La Vista comes to play Lincoln East, it just feels different.
Yeah.
You know, they could be two playoff contending teams, but when you get two city teams to play against each other, it's a community event. It's less of a community event when it is Lincoln versus Omaha or Grand Island or Kearney or Columbus or Norfolk. So the fact that the schedules have played out the way that they have this year, and there are just so few Lincoln versus Lincoln games, it's really unfortunate. But we know this is the last year of the scheduling cycle, so maybe things can revert back next year. I just think that a lot of these teams are fairly even in Lincoln, or if they're not, I don't know. And I won't know because they don't play each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I know Southwest is probably like, hey, we're the one random, right? Because I think they got North Star, they've got Southeast, I think they got Lincoln East, I think they got Lincoln Northeast. Southwest seems to be the only team that's maybe going to get them all except for Lincoln High.
Yeah, you know, and Southwest might benefit from that, because if football in Lincoln is down a little bit this year, it could be. We don't know right now.
Yeah.
But if it is, all of a sudden they just racked up a ton of wins.
Good point.
That's just by the nature of their schedule. And there might be other teams across the state saying, hey, we want to play all the Lincoln teams we possibly can. But I just think it would be better for Class A football. It would be better for the capital city. And it would be better for these individual schools to have those games to look forward to. I would even think that the students walking the halls, you know, when you're at Southwest and it's Southeast week, there's a pep in your step.
Yeah.
And it's something to look forward to. And everybody's talking about Friday night all week long, but it just doesn't have that appeal and the juice when you don't have those games, you know. And I'm not saying that they should have 8 games against city opponents. How about just 4? Let them have 1, and it's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's our guy, Kevin Sjuts, 1011 News in Lincoln. Kevin, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Good one.
Thanks, Kevin.